Okay, so I know it sounds crazy to say that Wonder Woman can bend reality, manipulate matter. Bear with me here, because we're in a whole new world with Absolute Wonder Woman now. So what this does is this picks up out of the last video that we did, which I know you guys have been dying for an update. My bad. And what we get is her killing the Tetracide. Now remember, the Tetracide is this gigantic monster, right? Kills by sound. And the only way to bring an end to it was seemingly Wonder Woman using this gigantic sword. Now, of course, the military responding to all of this fires some missiles off, right? And the Tetracide actually starts to knock the missiles away. The reason being because Wonder Woman's actions were not enough to kill it. Because if it wasn't bad enough that this gigantic tentacle monster is emitting a sound trying to pull everybody in the city into its mouth, it can heal itself. Because why not? Sure, right? Let's just swing for the fences. But it is kind of cool because this ups the stakes. What it shows is that Wonder Woman is going to have to turn to a desperate act in order to make this work. And that's exactly what she says here. She says, already the Tetracide begins to knit itself together. All I do is buy time, it seems. And when you are out of time, you consider desperate ideas. And so what this does is it transitions back to when she was with her mother. Now remember, the whole idea behind Cersei being the one that raises Wonder Woman down here in hell, there's a lot about this story that we don't know. And over time, I'm sure Kelly Thompson will start to reveal things, but it's one of the big mysteries, right? Why was Wonder Woman sent here? Why was Cersei sent here? What's going on out there in the world of the gods that led to Wonder Woman being needed to be sent here, right? Like, what in the world is going on out there? But one of the other things that we did learn is that Cersei here in the Absolute Universe, much like in the main DC universe, is an incredibly powerful sorceress. But what's going on here is she basically crafted a weapon for Wonder Woman that Wonder Woman's not entirely sure she knows how to handle. Now, of course, again, this whole exchange takes place before Wonder Woman arrives on Earth for the very first time. But the conversation between the two is very intriguing here because Cersei says, it's a last resort, Diana, but you will need that more than once where you're headed. And Diana asks, she's like, would it trouble us so to talk about my future in a positive light, mother? And that's where Cersei corrects her. And she's like, no, you misunderstand, right? I can look into the future and I've seen your future. And I'm sorry if I've given you the impression that your future is negative, because it is not. It is glorious, filled with beauty and horror and danger and opportunity, which is why you will need this. I named her Sacrifice. She will hold anything, Diana, and she will transform anything. But what she holds determines the shape of that transformation. And that's where Diana says, I understand. Now, initially, I did not. And in fact, it took me a couple times to kind of read this and sit on it for a minute or two to really understand what it was that she meant. But it's really more by way of context, right? But in essence, this can transform anything into anything else. Transmogrification, matter manipulation, whatever the case is. And you'll see what I'm talking about here in a minute, because it's not the lasso of truth, it's the lasso of transmogrification. But what ends up happening is Wonder Woman is suddenly set upon by a harpy, one of the various beings that exist down there in hell. And the fight between the two of them is pretty intense. And in fact, Diana ends up using this lasso, wraps it around this thing, and then the harpy is effectively destroyed. And while we don't necessarily get the ins and outs of what it turned into, the conversation between Cersei and Diana is of particular importance here, because this kind of creates, or seems to create, a sort of friction between the two of them, but also lays the basis for what makes Diana who she is. Because when she comes back, her mother just says, and the response of Diana, you didn't have to wait up. But her mother says, give me an answer. I want to know what happened. And Diana simply says, it worked very well. You are more skilled in transmogrification. I am less fluent. And she's just like, speak plainly. And Diana's response, I found it a bit cruel. The idea of using this thing to transform something into anything else, into any form other than what it is. And the response of her mother is, Diana, not everything that you meet will decide to be your best friend. Many will try to kill you even before shoving away your hand of friendship. Sacrifice is made for exactly that. And she says, it looks like that harpy nearly killed you, even with sacrifice in hand. Perhaps you should take a moment to be grateful for her instead of cursing her compromises. And so following this, Diana is met by the goddess of Hecate. And as the two of them start to talk to one another, Diana really shows her colors here. And one of the things she demonstrates is that she is, by all standards of measurement, a tried and true hero. Right now, here's the really interesting thing about this. In comic books, especially in recent years, and when I say recent, I mean comparatively speaking. So over the course of the last 30 years, right, maybe 40, depending on how you want to look at it, in comparison to almost 100 years worth of comics, you have the rise of anti-heroes, and the line between good guys and bad guys has become very morally ambiguous. There was a time when that was not the case. It's called the Silver Age of comics. Good guys were good guys, bad guys were bad guys, good guys beat the bad guys. End of story. And that's kind of the approach Diana takes here, right? That as she's having this conversation with this goddess, Diana says, either my mother cannot see the cruelty in this gift she's given me, or she does not care. And Hecate says, you're right. And when Diana asks about which one, she says, perhaps both, but certainly the second. And that's where Diana says, the second scares me more than the first. But Diana is told here, right, that Hecate says perhaps she does not care simply because she knows how to weight things appropriately. And the question's asked of Diana, and I don't. And the answer is, I'm not going to hold your hand and dance around it, princess. If your mother, who knows the future, made you a cruel weapon, I suspect she knows you're going to need it. And Diana counters here, right? She says she does not know the future. She can sometimes see parts of the future. That's not the same thing. And that's where she's asked, right? Diana, do you think this means that your mother is leading you astray? And where Diana says no, the question's asked, then what ails you, princess? And this is a really important part of the story because she says, I trust her implicitly. She frequently tells me I should not because she is false, but because I am too trusting. Despite that, I have never doubted her. And that's where the statement's made, until now, right? Diana says, this weapon, perhaps we do not see things the same way. And then, of course, she's chastised, right? Hecate says, foolish girl, that lasso is your mother, girl. She made it with love and fire and pain and blood. It is a lasso of transmogrification because transmogrification is what she knows best. And for you, she demands only the best. And it was you that made her believe in transformation. Even more than me, it was you. And that's where Diana really starts to pick up the pieces. And she starts to understand what's going on here. That her mother considers herself to be a damned soul, right? That Circe believes that she is beyond repentance. She's beyond being saved. She almost kind of deserves her fate down here. But Diana was thrust on her. Diana was thrown to her. And really, Circe was kind of forced to raise Diana in this place. And so virtually every step of the way, what Circe has tried to do is teach Diana to stray away from her path, not to fall down the same path that Circe herself did. And while she will give Diana tools for success that from Diana's perspective seem more like villainous tools, transmogrifying a creature into something else that is abhorrent, right? That is not what it's supposed to be and is torturous for the creature that is transformed, that at the end of the day, it's done in service of a greater good. Because the reality and what Circe was trying to teach Diana, the world is a lot of things. Fair is not one of them. And the reality here is that there are people who will seek to destroy Diana for no other reason than the fact that they consider her an enemy, or for no reason that Diana can fully grasp, and maybe no reason it's given at all. That's something that Diana has to learn to accept, and she has to learn to cope with. But it's also why her mother told her, this is a last-ditch weapon. This is something that you use only in the most dire of circumstances. And so that's where she tells her mother, I fully understand. I need you to teach me how to master this. And that's when you pick up with the full power of this thing. Because as the tetracide, right, is starting to bring itself back, and as Diana starts to realize there's only one real way to destroy this thing, she says to herself, Mother, you are always right. Did you see this moment in your scrying pool? Did you know that the answer would be so treacherous? This will take great focus, and the way back, that is uncertain. And the form, it might just be right. The tetracide has no natural enemies. It leans towards sound as both weapon and defense, but it has, and that's when she looks to Pegasus and realizes, oh my God, I know the perfect form to use to defeat this thing. And so she starts to wrap the lasso around herself with the intention of changing her physical form. And that's where Diana says, I am become her, she who is both terrible and tragic, cursing and cursed, forever entwined in injustice, a living hell. This mantle must I accept today for a far greater good, in hope and faith that I will once again someday be Diana of the Wild Isle, Diana, the last of the Amazons, Diana, daughter of Circe. Mother, please do not forget me, for now I am become doom. I am Medusa. Literally, Wonder Woman turns herself into Medusa. So literally, she can just restructure her physical form, right? Transmogrification, matter manipulation, however you want to spin it. That's what this is. And it's not simply her just taking on an appearance. It's not her casting an illusion. It's her changing her form and granting herself additional powers because of it. This is huge. It is absolutely massive. And if you don't believe me, what if she were to wrap a lasso around herself and turn herself into Superman and gain all the powers of Superman, right? That would be incredible. And so she says, and none that see my face shall live. And she casts her gaze to the tetracide. And as you guys know, anyone who looks upon the face of Medusa, who locks eyes with Medusa, they turn to stone. And that's the end of them. And that's exactly what happens with Wonder Woman. But here's the price that's paid whenever she draws this power. Whatever it is that she turns into, she loses herself. She literally becomes that thing. And there's no conceivable way to bring her back. At least that doesn't seem to be the case. And so as of this moment right now, Wonder Woman is Medusa. And as Medusa, she starts traveling through the city with the intention of locking gaze with everybody who sees her and turning them to stone. She is now arguably the deadliest foe in existence. And the thing about Medusa is there is no limit to who she can defeat and who she can turn to stone. So again, Superman, anybody else out there, it's the end of the line for those guys. At least that seems to be the case. And so while everybody's kind of mulling this over, we switch over to Steve Trevor. And the question is, if she's still Medusa and she's stuck that way, then how in the world do we bring her back? And that's where Trevor says we bring her back by reminding her of who she was, reminding her of who Diana is. And so Steve Trevor goes out there and calls out to her, right? Now, the cool thing about this, and this is an important thing to understand, seemingly the longer she stays in this particular role, the more she becomes lost. And so because she's newly transformed, it's probably much easier to bring her back than if she had stayed in this form for like months on end. And so when Trevor calls out to her, of course, she gains his attention, but him having a blindfold on shields him from her gaze. And he says, Diana, I know you can hear me, and I know you understand that this is not who you are. You are a great hero and warrior who saved me from the underworld. You cut off your arm, an incredible sacrifice to free me, to send me home. You must remember, you are Diana, witch of the Wild Isle, daughter of Circe. Diana, the last of the Amazons. Wonder Woman, hero of Gateway City. And it brings her back. Now, the unwritten thing here that Kelly Thompson is hitting on is that it's not that dissimilar from Black Widow and the Incredible Hulk, right? Hey, big guy, the sun's getting real low. It's just not as stupid, right? And so the thing about this is Trevor is the way in which Wonder Woman can be brought back. It's the way in which Wonder Woman maintains an anchor to the world. And so what Kelly Thompson, I imagine, is setting up here is the idea of what happens when Trevor dies, right? What happens when Steve Trevor is killed off? What takes place? What does Diana turn into? And if she does transform herself, would she be too far lost to save? But the reality here is that because of what happened with the Tetracide turning to stone, Diana just punches it, shatters this thing into a multitude of pieces and essentially destroys it, right? That's basically it. But the question that's asked by her friends is, did you know that this was going to work? And the response of Diana is, I didn't know for certain, right? Medusa is a horror story, a cruel fate dealt by the hand of a goddess I love, Athena, who has only ever blessed me. And she says, when my feelings about the injustice of Medusa's plight burn bright, I try to remember that all of us, even the gods, are vulnerable to our hearts becoming twisted with hate. Hate and fear drive us only to the worst versions of ourselves. We need to be better than all of that, every single one of us. And she thanks them, right? Thank you for helping me find myself. I am, again, in your debt. And while they're taking this moment to celebrate the whole idea of Diana winning, a hand shoots out from the underground and drags her down to hell. With that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end. A massive cliffhanger. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, drop a like, and I will catch you all later. Peace.